On number 7 in the Everything Google Classroom, we're going to start looking at Google Slides. Much like I thought with Google Docs, I think you're more familiar with Google Slides, so I'm just going to show you a couple of things, ways I use Google Slides when I taught math, and a couple of different add-ons you could use. And I also have attached down below a link that shows different examples of how to use slides in the classroom. I think we all kind of use it as a presentation tool, and there's a couple of different things you can do. Presentations are great, but there's a couple of different more options that I wouldn't have thought of that I found as a resource for us to have. So if you'll go ahead and click on this math vocabulary slides link, this was the first way I ever used Google Slides, and I found it to be super beneficial. I hated handing out. I knew they needed to learn these math terms. I knew they needed to learn what they meant so they could apply them. But every time I handed out a piece of paper, they lost it, or I'd find it on the ground. And then come quiz time or come application time where I'm trying to get them to apply these words they've learned, they said, I didn't have my paper to study. So I decided instead of giving them math vocabulary words, I wanted them to create them. If it's in their words, then they're going to understand it better. And every time I would create kind of what I thought was a good definition, we ended up running across a word they didn't know yet because I didn't think like a fourth grade student. So this is the way we introduced math vocabulary, typically on Mondays or whenever we were starting a new unit. All I gave them were the words, and I would assign them a slide, which I'm going to assign all of you a slide, and we're going to play this game. I would assign them all a slide, say you're number 2. All they were responsible for was one definition. But in the matter of 5 to 10 minutes, they had the definitions of all, I think there's 9 of these words. So take a moment. I'm going to assign you all a slide number, and I want you to fill in a definition. If you're watching the video of this, obviously they're already going to all be filled in for you. So you can just look at the work that they did while they were at the professional development day. The reason I liked this is because they can't lose Google Slides. If they can log into their Chromebook, they have access to these vocabulary words. I was not naive enough to think a lot of them were taking them home to study. Just a handful of them were. But this gave me something. If they had downtime, I could say, open up your vocabulary slides and go over your words. So this was another thing that if they had their Chromebook, which they never lose that for the most part, because that's important to them, then they had these vocabulary words to study. This also gave us the opportunity to go back and talk about these words. Instead of me handing out the paper and it being my words, it gave us a chance to discuss. So if I got a definition that was wrong, or if they copied and pasted over too much information, they knew better than to do that. But if they did, it gave us a chance to talk about it. So this just got us a little bit deeper in our vocabulary list than just giving them the paper. Going back to our Google Classroom, the second thing I have attached is just the document that shows different ways, and I'm going to go ahead and click on it, that you can use Google Slides, and ironically, it is a slideshow that they're putting all this information in. I got this at one of the conferences I attended, and it just had a whole bunch of information on how you could use Google Slides in your classroom. So I went ahead and attached this here. I'm not going to go over all of it, but you can go and look at it when you have time. And the last thing in Google Slides, which is number 9 in our classroom, is Pear Deck. Now, Pear Deck is something you can purchase. However, just like every other add-on, there's free components with it. So we don't have the extended Pear Deck options, but we have some of them. I'm going to show you and have everybody in the classroom log in. Sorry, Phil. I'm going to show you and have everybody in the classroom log in. This is a different way to present Google Slides and have the class be interactive throughout it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it and show you what it looks like. Just like any other add-on, in order to find it, you're going to have to click on your add-ons tab and click Get Add-on. And then I figured it was one of the top ones. So you can go ahead and add it. I believe it's going to make you log in like you would through your Google and ask you if you can log in under your email address, and that's fine. Once you have Pear Deck, I'm going to go ahead and show you what the menu looks like off to the side. It has them broken down into beginning of the lesson, during the lesson, and end of the lesson. And it also has, down at the bottom, different ways you can ask them questions. So I very, very, very quickly threw together a very simple multiplication facts lesson. So you started just like you would any slideshow. I created my title page, but then I clicked on the beginning of lesson and I added this page. Now, what this is going to do when you're presenting it, and I'll show you what present mode looks like on the teacher end. When you're presenting it, the students can draw and write in these two boxes. So you're going to get a report at the end of it of the 2 facts that they already knew before this class started. Go back. My next slide, I quickly dropped all the 4 times tables so we could review those. Like I said, this is a very simple example, but I just wanted a way to show you how it could be used. This is the next. So I clicked on the during lesson and I scrolled to the very bottom. So now it's interactive on their side and they can drag and connect the multiplication problem to the corresponding product. My next page, if you'll notice, is again my multiplication facts, but I purposely put some in there that are wrong. On this slide, on the student's end, it's going to ask, I'm going to ask the question, and it's going to have answer choices. I would ask out loud, how many errors or how many incorrect products do you see on this page? And it would give them a choice of A, B, and C, and all the different options that I've included. I think I did 3, 5, and 6 maybe. So they're going to scan the products and see how many of them are wrong. On the next slide, it's another Pear Deck form that I used. I think it's under, it's under end of lesson. So it says, pretend your friend was absent and you have to write something you learned in class today. On the student side, it's going to actually have a blank text box where they can type in their responses, or another version of the end of lesson that I also got as a Pear Deck slide was in 1 minute, write the most important thing from today's lesson. So this is one that you would use if you want to see quickly what they've learned. You don't have a whole lot of time in your class and you need to get them out the door. This is how you would build it on this side. Now let me show you what it looks like in presenter mode. So after I'm finished, at the top of my add-on to the right, I'm going to click Present with Pear Deck. Again, I'm going to have to log in as me to do that 15 times. Your students, this is just showing you because it's going to show up on your projector. Your students are going to go to joinpd.com and they're going to type in this code. Once they have done that, you're going to see down at the bottom, right now it says no students have joined, which I know that. You would see down at the bottom how many students have joined, and you can click your next button. You're going to walk them through this whole lesson. You can annotate on your screen. You can have them answer it, then you can go over it. You're going to give them time when they get to the slides that are interactive for them to respond. At the end, one last thing, you're going to want to end your session. You would click on the little menu button at the very bottom, and you're going to click End Session. You want to give it a name, so I'm just going to say math, and you're going to click Save and End. It says Finding Link to Takeaways. So what you're going to be able to do is you can share this link out to your students, where you can return to Google Slides and you can go to your Google Drive and find their responses to see how they did.